welcome back. Let's move on to the next topic. Our next topic is conical pendulum. Before I define conical pendulum, let me tell you what is meant by a simple pendulum. Okay. Now, a simple pendulum consists of a light, inextensible string supported by a rigid, fixed from a rigid support, and attached to this string is a small, there's a small bob or a heavy particle, a heavy small bob or a heavy particle. But actually, we can't put a particle to a string, so we assume that a small bob or sphere is attached to the string. Okay, and when it is allowed to move along a straight line, okay, almost like a straight line, this motion will be called as what? Motion of a simple pendulum. So in simple pendulum, the particle will be moving in a single plane. Do you understand? It will be moving in a single plane. But what is meant by conical pendulum? See, in conical pendulum, and understand, look at this. Can you see how is the motion? You can see that this particular string is moving along the surface of a conical surface of a cone. Okay, vertical cone. What? Vertical cone. And it is having one axis called vertical axis. And secondly, if you look carefully at the bob or the object, that object is moving on a horizontal circle with uniform circular motion. Okay, so the string moves on the surface of a cone, vertical cone, and the object is moving in a horizontal circular motion with a constant speed or uniform. It exhibits uniform circular motion. Just have a look at it once again. See, the object is moving in circular path, and that's an example of uniform circular motion. Now let's understand this on the board. But here there are two diagrams. Now what is the difference between the two diagrams that I will tell you? See, in one diagram all the real forces are considered, and in the other diagram the real as well as pseudo forces are considered. Now which pseudo force we will talk about? The pseudo force will be the centrifugal force. Correct? Now over here, the forces which will act on this object, the main force will be the weight or mg, which will be vertically downwards. It will be pointing what? Vertically downwards, like this. That is the weight of the object. And second is the tension in the string. Okay, the tension provided by the string also exerts a force on the object. These are the real forces. But we have to resolve the component of T into two components, one horizontal and one vertical. How we do it? Let's see on the board. These are two diagrams for conical pendulum. One is an inertial frame and one is a non-inertial frame. Okay. Now AB is the length of the conical pendulum. Mass is m. Okay. It is moving in a circular path of radius r. C is the center of circular path. It's a horizontal circle. What? Horizontal circle. And C is the center of the circular path. Now, the mass m will experience certain forces. The first force will be mg, which is vertically downwards. Second is the tension in the string. Both are real forces. Now this tension T can be resolved into two components, one along vertical and one along horizontal. This component theta, this component will be T cos theta, which makes an angle theta with the vertical. This angle and this angle theta will be equal. Okay, and this line BC, along this line the component T sin theta will act. So over here we have resolved T into two components, T cos theta and T sin theta, and the weight is vertically downwards. Here all these forces can be considered as real forces. Okay, they are considered as real forces. Now when we talk about non-inertial frame, we also have to consider the pseudo forces acting on the body. The same diagram I have drawn here. Okay. Now this is the T sin theta, this is T cos theta, and this is the weight. But as I told you, in circular motion there is a force acting on the body in outward direction, radially outward, and that can be given by m omega square r, and that force is a pseudo force. So when you, in non-inertial frame of reference, I will show mg, T sin theta, T cos theta, and m omega square r. Okay, so these are the forces acting on the body in inertial frame and non-inertial frame of reference. One more thing, see, the length of the string is L. So if you want to find AC, this length will be L cos theta, and if you want to find CB, this radius will be equal to L sin theta. Remember this because we will be using these points in our derivation. Now, the weight mg is balanced by the component T cos theta, while the T sin theta, which is directed along the radius towards the center, balances the provides the necessary centripetal force for the body to move in a circular path. So I can write mg balanced by T cos theta, so mg equal to T cos theta, and the centripetal force given by m omega square r or m v square upon r equal to T sin theta. Is it okay? Now I divide equation 2 by 1. What I get? Okay, I will get m omega square r upon mg equal to T sin theta upon T cos theta. M will get cancelled. Okay, what I get is omega square equal to G sin theta upon R cos theta. Is it okay? Did you understand this? I divided equation 2 by 1. I got this omega square equal to G sin theta upon R cos theta. Now I have already written there what is the value of R. R is written as L sin theta. So I can write this as G sin theta upon L sin theta cos theta. Is it okay? Now sin theta will get cancelled. Okay, what I get is omega square equal to G upon L cos theta. See, now the formula for time period of the bob, time taken to complete one circle, is given by formula T equal to 2 pi upon omega. Okay. Now what is the value of omega which I get from here? Omega is square root of G upon L cos theta, right? So over here I write 2 pi divided by G upon L cos theta, or 2 pi into under root L cos theta upon G, right? This will be the formula for time period of the conical pendulum. The bob to complete a circle, the total time taken will be T, which depends on L cos theta and G. G is constant, but L cos theta may change. Now, if anyone asks me what is the frequency of revolution, number of revolutions done in unit time, I will simply take the reciprocal of time period, and this comes out to be 1 upon 2 pi under root L cos theta by G, or 1 upon 2 pi under root G upon L cos theta. This is our expression for time period of a conical pendulum and frequency of conical pendulum. This is the formula for time period. Okay, 2 pi under root L cos theta by G, and this is a formula for frequency of conical pendulum. Now all these forces which were acting were in inertial frame. But if we talk about non-inertial frame of reference, we have to consider the centrifugal force acting along the radius away from the center. And that component is provided by T sine theta. Okay, in non-inertial frame of reference, the centrifugal force is given by T sine theta equal to m omega square r. This component you have to add, which is the component of pseudo force, and it is acting on the particle along the radius away from the center. So this is all about conical pendulum. Okay, hope the concept is very clear in your mind. See friends, our next topic is about rolling motion. See, imagine there is a slope and I keep this pencil on the slope and release it. What happens? It rolls down. Okay. One more example. Look at the object and tell me whether it's rolling or sliding. It is sliding. Okay. So it is not necessary that when an object is kept on a slope, it will necessarily roll. If it is circular object like a ring, disc or cylinder, what? Ring, disc, cylinder or sphere, then the object will roll. Otherwise, the object will slide on the surface. Now, what things you have to understand when a body is rolling? We all know that a body in translation motion shows kinetic energy given by half mv square, and when the body is in rotation, the kinetic energy is given by half I omega square, which I have already taught you. So two formulas we have got. In translation motion, kinetic energy is given by half mv square, and in rotation motion we give it by formula half I omega square, right? But what happens if an object is rolling down the slope? Okay, an object is rolling down the slope. When it is rolling, all the particles of the object are undergoing rotational motion. They are moving in circles, except for the particle which we call as the center of mass. Okay, this particle which is called as the center of mass, when the object rolls, okay, when the object rolls, that particle will always move in a straight line. I repeat, when an object is rolling down a slope, the point which is called as the center of mass will move in a straight line down the slope. It will not show rotational motion. As a result, we have to understand that rolling on a slope, rolling of an object on a slope is a combination of two kinetic energy. One is rotational kinetic energy and second is what? The translational kinetic energy. So we have to make use of both the formulas, that is half mv square and half I omega square. Now over here, the formula of radius of gyration will also be used. The radius of gyration is given by I equal to mk square. Understood? So these things you remember and will solve the equation and get the expression on the board. Okay? Diagram. This is a circular object, maybe a sphere, ring, cylinder or disc, rolling down an incline. Okay? The height of this incline is h and total displacement is s. That's why I can write h equal to s sine theta. Now what things you have to remember? The object is of mass m, okay, and r is the radius of this object, and when it is in rotation motion, omega stands for angular velocity of the object. Now I stands for moment of inertia of the body, and v is the linear velocity of the body, and k stands for radius of gyration of the given body. Okay. Now first I will write the rotational kinetic energy of the body. The formula is given by half I omega square. Okay. Now we all know moment of inertia is given by m into k square, right? Similarly, we also know V equal to R omega, and omega is V upon R. Okay, this I'll take as capital R, don't worry. So when you substitute these values in our given equation, the rotational kinetic energy can be written as half, instead of I, I'll write what? M k square into V square upon R square, right? Or this will be written as half M V square into bracket k square upon R square. This is the expression for rotational kinetic energy. Is it clear? Once again, have a look at it. The formula is half I omega square. I is the moment of inertia, which is written as mk square, and V is the linear velocity given by R into omega. When you put omega as V upon R, the formula becomes half mk square into V square upon R square, or half mv square into k square upon R square. Okay. Now, as I told you, the center of mass is in which type of motion? It is undergoing translation motion. So if I want to find translational kinetic energy, I'll simply write as half m v square. Okay, that's the value of translational kinetic energy. Now the total energy of the body, total kinetic energy of the body will be the sum of translational kinetic energy plus rotational kinetic energy, which comes out to be half m v square plus half m v square into bracket k square upon r square. Right? Now half m v square is taken common. What you get in bracket is 1 plus k square upon r square. Okay. This is a total kinetic energy of a rolling body. Which body? Rolling body, which is a combination of translational and rotational kinetic energy. Next we have to talk about the acceleration and velocity of a body which is purely rolling down an inclined plane. There is an object, circular object, rolling down an inclined plane. Okay, its height is given by h equal to s sine theta, and we have to find what will be the velocity when it reaches the bottom, and also the acceleration when it reaches the bottom. First of all, we all know that when an object is released from a height, the potential energy gets converted into kinetic energy. The same phenomena, the same concept we will use over here. Here I write potential energy at height is equal to kinetic energy at bottom. Now we all know potential energy is given by mgh, and kinetic energy, as I told you earlier, it is a combination of rotational plus translational kinetic energy, and this we get as half m v square into bracket 1 plus k square upon r square. This I have already derived. Okay. Now what things will get cancelled? Here m will get cancelled. Okay. And what we get? Keep v square over here and move the other terms over other side. We get 2gh upon 1 plus k square upon r square equal to v square. Okay, and therefore I can write v equal to square root of 2gh upon 1 plus k square upon r square. This is the expression for velocity of an object after rolling down the inclined plane. Now let's talk about the acceleration. See, when the object is released from the height, its initial velocity u will be 0. Its displacement is given by h equal to s sine theta. Therefore s will be h upon sine theta. Once again, u is the initial velocity when the object is released from the height. The total displacement is s, and the total velocity of the object when it reaches the ground is given by under root 2gh upon 1 plus k square upon r square. Okay. And since the velocity is increasing, we say the acceleration of the body is given by a, which I have to find. Is it okay? U is the initial velocity, V is the final velocity, S is the displacement, acceleration is a. Now I use the third equation of motion, v square equal to u square plus 2as, or 2as equal to v square minus u square, but u is 0, so 2as equal to v square, or a will be v square upon 2s. Now I substitute the value of v square. What is v square? It is 2gh upon 1 plus k square upon r square divided by 2s. Value of s is what? h upon sine theta. Okay. Now this value of h will definitely get cancelled. 2 will also get cancelled. What remains is finally g sine theta upon 1 plus k square upon r square. This is the acceleration of the object when it reaches the ground. Okay. So this is our final expression. A equal to g sine theta upon 1 plus k square by r square. Okay.